You are listening to the Football Diehards podcast with your hosts, Justin Lonero and Bob Harris, sponsored by DraftKings. Sign up now using promo code DIEHARDS, DIEHARDS. Make a first-time $5 deposit, and you'll receive a free $3 ticket.
Welcome to the Football Diehards podcast. I'm your host, Justin Lonero, on Twitter at Justin Lonero, along with my co-host, as always, Mr. Bob Harris, on Twitter at Football Diehard. Now, our executive producer is always on the line, Kyle Dvorchak at FF Kyle the Kid on Twitter. Gentlemen, it's week 12. Wow, the season just flies. Mr. Harris, what is going on this evening?
Greetings, everybody. I just wait before we get too far into this and before I forget, because we start talking about football and I can't remember a damn thing once it gets all exciting and interesting like that. I would like to welcome Kyle Dvorchak to the writing ranks, joining Mr. Lonero and myself. We always do our columns every week. Justin with his digging in the DFS crates, looking for the values. I do my work on the site constantly. And now we have the volume report, a new weekly report by Kyle. Tell us what we can expect there, Kyle.
Yeah, every week I'll be writing about some either unknown players or relatively unknown and unknown players that you can get for cheap in DFS or, low ownership in your season-long leagues. And this time of the year, hopefully those are some of the guys, your C.J. Andersons, your Justin Fournettes of the past. Hopefully we can find some of those guys who move late into the season. I know we'll talk about some of them here. Josh Adams and Gus Edwards, guys with potential. Basically guys that are now seeing volume late in the season and guys who are dipping. Joe Mixon has had 2 off weeks. I talk about if we expect that to continue or not. This week gets Cleveland, so at least low volume may not matter against Cleveland. But yeah, expect different interesting changes in volume every week. Volume report.
I'll be very interested to see if your man Zach Zenner makes it next week after a game without Kerryon Johnson on Thanksgiving Day. But we'll get into all the Thursday games. We'll do a quick rundown of the slate in the DFS, and we'll talk some of the injuries. First, we're coming off this Monday night game. 3,000 points were scored, or 105. Anyway, a lot of points were scored. I thought, interesting to me, like tons of offense, right? It was pretty fantastic. Loved it. But the defense is making plays too. Defense is changing. Defense is not like a defense anymore. It's just like an offense that doesn't have the ball. It seems like, you look at like a team like the Rams, you have an Aaron Donald who is in there making plays. He's a big disruptive playmaker, causing trouble, setting up scores by the defense. And I think that's the direction we're heading. And I just, I kind of do this often on this pod, is just see where we're at. We have 7,791 points scored through week 11. That's the most in the history of the NFL. 895 touchdowns have been scored so far this season, the most in NFL history. 570 touchdown passes, also the most in NFL history through week 11. But it's making for exciting football too, because you look, 47 games have been decided by 3 points or fewer, the second most in NFL history. 78 games have been decided by 7 points or fewer, tied for the 5th most in NFL history. 86 games have been decided by 8 points or fewer, tied for the 3rd most. I mean, this has been it's a phenomenal season to watch football. If you love football, I'm sure you're enjoying this. I know some of the old traditionalists, somewhere my dad is sitting around shaking his fist wondering what the defenses are. It's a changing game. Get with the program, people. It's a good time. Just quick thoughts on this, Justin.
Yeah, I'm at this point in time, I think I am somewhat of a traditionalist, and I can remember watching these Baltimore Ravens teams where no points were scored, and I had an appreciation for the Ray Lewis's and those those Ravens teams. But I mean, look, this is the new norm, like you said. Now, we were talking before the show, and I think this is exactly what Roger Goodell wants. I think that this is what puts butts in seats. I think this is what stirs up conversations at the water cooler today at work, and people want to talk about points, and nobody cares about 10-3 football games anymore. I mean, you look at creative minds. Well, I think a guy like Bill Belichick has made a ton of mistakes, and there's no question he's the Albert Einstein of coaching. But I think as time has gone by, more minds like Sean McVay are becoming a topic of conversation. We were hoping to see some of that in Tennessee with Matt LaFleur, and I think offenses are becoming more creative, innovative, and this is the new norm. So there's going to be points galore every week. I mean, with the officiating the way it is, it makes certain things aggravating for players alike and obviously coaches and fans. But it certainly keeps your eyes on what's going on with the NFL, and it it's certainly making money, and it's the new wave.
When I hear you say it makes things aggravating, I'm pretty sure you mean for you. For me, it's fantasy points. That's all I'm after. Kyle, from a fantasy perspective, strictly, I mean, what more could you ask for?
No, I mean, this is awesome. I'm a few months or days younger than you guys, I believe. I haven't run the numbers yet, but a little bit younger than you guys. I am not a traditionalist. This is great. Every week is heaven. And also, if you're saying you miss the defense, you're actually getting more defense. We're seeing more plays, longer drives. That's more chances for defenses to make plays. And despite the score being so high, we saw defense make a huge impact in last night's game just because you put playmakers on your defense and you give them so many plays, they will make those plays. And it's something like a simple sack fumble for a touchdown or that one pick six, despite giving up 50 points, they can really swing it. So I really do believe this gives us the best of both worlds, and it's awesome. I love it.
Spot on, Kyle Dvorchak. 1 point to you. All right, Justin. No, here we go. All right, let's look at, just quickly touching on a couple of the injury issues, and some of them are involved in the Thursday game. We'll start with the Mitchell Trubisky story. Turns up with a shoulder injury on a hit from I think it was Harrison, the safety for the Vikings. Anyhow, a little nicked up, and it sounds like, the first report was they're optimistic. The second report was cautiously optimistic. And now you have all the local observers kind of leaning towards Chase Daniels making a start. Very well versed in this offense, played in Kansas City for 5 years. It's the reasons he's in Chicago. And we'll find all this out in plenty of time in advance of kickoff, certainly 90 minutes to make any pivots you need in your DFS and your season long. I guess the question is, how does this have you thinking, Justin, about the players surrounding him? Does it put you off them? Does it maybe make you rally around them? Where are you at on this?
I think if you're going to beat the Detroit Lions through the ground, it's been so far this season. So you will see Tariq Cohen and you will see Jordan Howard. I mean, I don't think permitting Mitchell Trubisky if he doesn't play, I don't know that they're just going to open up the floodgates. Like you said, it doesn't sound like he's going to play. It's only Tuesday night. We are recording on Tuesday night, but I would suspect, and even if Mitch Trubisky did play, the Lions have been one of the worst teams in the NFL in terms of plug and the run this year. So we know what Tariq Cohen is. We know what Jordan Howard is, and I think you go at them with the ground game. Now, of course, you have Allen Robinson. It's been nice to see Anthony Miller show up. Of course, Trey Burton is in the equation, but I would lean heavily on the ground game in the event that Mitch Trubisky does not play.
Allen Robinson, the Jordan Howard of wide receivers. He needs those 2 touchdowns or you're going to be PO'd after the game. Kyle, other side of the ball, we've got no Kerryon Johnson, Marvin Jones out. We saw Kenny Golladay start living up to that. Look, the targets were certainly funneled his way. He was heavy workload. Maybe they get Michael Roberts back to tight end. I don't know if that makes a big difference. We joke about it. You're a big Zach Zenner guy. I was reading on the team's official website just a short time ago that maybe we'll see a little of him. LeGarrette Blount, it hasn't been good for him. It's, 16 yards combined over the last 4 games, about 2.5 yards a carry. Theo Riddick, more of a PPR play. Is this just a situation to avoid for you, even with your clear-cut leaning towards all things Zenner?
I actually do believe this is one of the situations where if you really do believe in talent, it's worth taking, a few DFS flyers on, because I love Zach Zenner. I actually do think he's talented. As much as I throw out the good memes about Zach Zenner, I do believe he is just a better version of LeGarrette Blount. He's similarly a big back who people say doesn't have much wiggle, but he's better at catching. I believe they used him on kick coverage and kick return teams before. He's like an athletically gifted player, despite not being, very common knowledge to anyone but me and like my 5 friends. So I will legitimately have a few flyers on him because he has had multiple spark weeks. I think I saw something that the highest viewed game, I believe it was the highest viewed game before this Monday night game we just had was Lions Dallas. And guess who went off that game? Zach Zenner scored 2 touchdowns. He's got the body type of guy who can score touchdowns. I'll have some of him. And in terms of the Marvin Jones injury, it's all Kenny Golladay all day. He'll be high owned on the 3-game slates for Thursday, but in cash or in your weekly lineups, it's all Kenny Golladay right now.
Right, and just to run through by this, I just went out and checked while we were chatting here, or while Kyle was fantasizing about Zach Zenner, and Blount and Riddick combined for 1 yard on 8 carries against Carolina last week on the season. Riddick averaging 3.3 yards per carry and Blount averaging 3.0. Hence, it's easy to think that Zach Zenner, the optimism of the unknown is strong with that one.
He's a loyalist. He's
Look,
a loyalist.
Look, I'm always looking. I mean, it's a thing in fantasy, the optimism of the unknown. When you know how bad the other options suck, and you don't know how bad Zach Zenner might suck yet, it's easy to glom onto him. And I'm kind of with Kyle on this. We'll see how the playing time rolls out. I mean, in the 3 games where he's carried the ball 10 times or more, he's averaged 4.2 a carry. That's Zach Zenner.
So, give me all the positive Zach Zenner stats.
The Bears are allowing 78 yards on the ground.
This is the problem for me,
it's
right?
Not a good spot.
Dalvin Cook says, "Hey, don't play any of those running backs in Detroit this week." So there's that as well. Other injury news: O.J. Howard done for the season. The sea of mediocrity gets a little shallower. And with Jameis Winston coming back into the mix and maybe having a chance to make a run down the stretch here, are you interested in Cameron Brate, Justin?
Oh yeah. I mean, clear rapport with Jameis Winston. He's heavily targeted in the red zone. We like that. In 2016, he had 8 touchdowns. Last season, he had 6, and we've seen a little glimmers at this point in the season. So without O.J. Howard, which kind of stinks because he's one of these young players that we want to see thrive on a struggling Bucs team. It's going to be a lot of Cameron Brate, and particularly on DraftKings this week for certain. He falls right in that sea of mediocrity, and you could probably lock him in for a touchdown. Yeah, for a touchdown.
So I guess, let's spin this out to quarterbacks because that's where there's a lot of news. Ryan Tannehill coming back from his injury this week. I don't know who the hell he's going to throw to. There is, Jakeem Grant's just had season-ending surgery this week. We'd already lost, some of the other elements there. So it's Devontae Parker's beat up. Kenny Stills coming back off a groin injury. Danny Amendola. Do you guys feel confident at all in the Miami offense? I mean, it's hard for me to play anybody here. Kyle?
No. Well, go ahead, Kyle.
Yeah, no, that's like my entire answer was just no. Let's avoid this at all costs. And in lieu of having any real volume, which we've seen Frank Gore sporadically get some carries, we've seen Kenny Stills when he's healthy get some targets, but nothing really consistent. And in lieu of consistent volume, you're not playing players on a bad offense if they're not getting consistent volume. I won't have any of it. None of it. Don't have it.
The Dolphins grabbed Danny Amendola in hopes that he would replace Jarvis Landry, and we haven't even seen a quarter of that production down in Miami. But like you say, Kyle, I mean, historically, Ryan Tannehill has had some rapport with Kenny Stills. He's that home run hitter, and I would, certainly in tournaments, you could have some Kenny Stills because he can hit a home run, as well as anyone. He's he's a younger version of Marvin Jones.
All right, so Justin, you get your choice of 2 Baltimore running backs, Gus Edwards or Lamar Jackson. Oh wait, Lamar's a quarterback, but either way. So we have a situation with Lamar Jackson, Gus Edwards, both run for more than 100 yards last week. At some point, Lamar Jackson's going to have to prove he can throw the football. Where are you at on him? Is he a guy you're stashing on rosters for down the stretch in case he turns into that dual threat actual quarterback, or is he just going to remain a one-dimensional play?
Well, yeah. I mean, we've talked about Lamar Jackson all off season with numerous guests on this show. The time is now. Now, look, he's in the NFL now, and you need to be able to play in structure. I think the 3 of us can agree on that. So that's cute that he can run around. That's an added component to your game. But you got to be able to go through your reads and progressions if you're going to be successful in this league. Now, it's interesting. The 3 of us, I thought, can be in agreement that Alex Collins was going to be their bell cow this season. I mean, 7 carries last week. Week 9, he had 9, 11. Buck Allen's been in the mix. And then all of a sudden, boom, Gus Edwards. He comes out of left field last week, 115 yards. Wow, and they're priced similar on, this week. So it's gonna be Edwards for me. And it's strange that I'm saying this. There's some type of rapport, but in terms of Lamar Jackson, very exciting. And we talk about excitement and the direction that the league is going at this point in time. And I think Lamar Jackson, if he can again play in structure, is going to have a bright future in this league. And I think it's something that the Baltimore Ravens need. I mean, you're going to go through another decade of Joe Flacco.
Here's the thing that makes Gus Edwards more interesting, or the things. Justin Forsett and Alex Collins. I mean, these are the running backs who have come out of nowhere to win people fantasy titles. Alex Collins, and most recently starting the season on the practice squad and ending up being the superstar. So don't be surprised if it happens. We're the speculative play based on the workload he got in John Harbaugh's laudatory comments after the game. I get a feeling that there are trust issues with Collins and Buck Allen, and we'll see what happens with Kenneth Dixon too. By the way, he's in the mix as well. So we're looking at wide receiver, Kyle. If we're talking about the free agent possibilities there, is there anyone on your list? And I mean, Traquan Smith coming off a huge game, which I think was I think we could have seen. I certainly saw it coming. I predicted
we touched on it
last week. Yes. So I like Traquan Smith, but let's say I have a choice of two guys for this week. Let's say Traquan Smith and DJ Moore, and rest of the season. Let's throw Josh Reynolds into that mix, Kyle. Traquan Smith, DJ Moore, Josh Reynolds, rest of the season.
I will rule out Traquan Smith because, as we talked about last week, I believe, you love attacking these high over-unders in unique ways, and Traquan Smith was a low ownership way to do so, but he's a low-volume guy, and that's not what you're looking for long-term fantasy points, so I will rule him out, despite me liking his talent and his situation in terms of the offense he plays for. He's a good DFS play, not a good long-term hold for this season. And then DJ Moore, I love DJ Moore's talent, and his volume seems to be on the up and up. I will go with him, despite Josh Reynolds in the similar, he's filling that Cooper Kupp role, or at least the volume of Cooper Kupp's role specifically, admirably, but I don't know if the third receiver on that team is as valuable as the 1B, maybe 1A, on the Carolina Panthers offense that has looked extremely good this year, and with all the playmaking talent they have, just seems incredibly hard to defend.
Especially with Gerald Everett and Tyler Higbee seeming to come on a little bit in for Los Angeles. That's the correct answer again. That's two correct answers for Kyle, Justin. Why are you lagging? I'll give you another chance here momentarily. Okay. By the way, Traquan Smith, our friend Armando Marsal, host of the Chalk Talk podcast, cashed in, I think, a $10,000 lineup on the DraftKings this past week, and one of his key components was the Traquan Smith going up against the Philadelphia Eagles. Great game for him. Congratulations to you, Armando Marsal. So let's get into Justin, set us up to get into the slate. The Thursday slate we'll start with, but set us up for this.
Well, this show is brought to you by DraftKings, and if you haven't signed up for DraftKings, you want to sign up for DraftKings using our promo code DIEHARDS, DIEHARDS. It's that time of year where if your season-long leagues are terrible, you probably want to go to DraftKings, where you have no allegiance to anyone, and they are by far and away at this point in time the leader in 1 week fantasy sports. Again, Diehards, DIEHARDS. If you sign up, or if you haven't signed up, deposit $5 and you'll get a free $3 ticket courtesy of DraftKings and Football Diehards, of course.
Justin, that's the rightest answer we'll hear all night. You just won the contest, so
thank you.
The rest of the time you can take the rest of the night off me and Kyle. No.
Okay.
Let's jump in on the Thursday. Who do you like, Justin? Let's just touch on it because we don't want all the info to expire, but people will be listening early. So touch on the Thursday slate. Who do you like? Who are you avoiding?
I like Drew Brees, like every other week, and I like Alvin Kamara. I was on Mark Ingram last week. I liked what Zeke Elliott did to the Philadelphia Eagles. I was on Mark Ingram on this show. Mark Ingram was Mark Ingram, took a discount, was off Alvin Kamara. He was still Alvin Kamara. In terms of the running game, I'm going to be on Tariq Cohen, and I'm going to have some Jordan Howard and hope that Jordan Howard comes alive and we can see what he's capable of doing. He's that, we are paying for volume at 4,100 for Jordan Howard. And like I said earlier, you beat the Lions on the ground. I couldn't agree more with Kyle in terms of it's going to be Kenny Golladay week. Obviously, we like Julio Jones. They're probably going to be playing catch-up against the Saints, 8,300. I'm all over Julio Jones. And at tight end, gentlemen, Jordan Reed. It was on Jordan Reed. I wrote him up in Digging in the Crates. I think it was a great spot for him. So you're not really paying up when it's 4,700. But as we've seen, Jordan Reed, which was years ago, he can have a ceiling as high as just about any tight end in the game. We saw what he did last week, 7 of 11 71 yards and a touchdown. We're fine with that, 4,700. So give me some of him on Thursday at tight end. Now, defense is interesting. It's a position where you can get burned, and I am gonna have the Chicago Bears at 2,900 at Detroit, getting a lot of Matt Stafford. So I will not be paying for the Cowboys, although I like them in real life. I think they're a fantastic unit to watch. I've mentioned that on this podcast, but in terms of defense, I will be on the Chicago Bears.
Kyle, just, and we didn't talk about it in the open, but I always thought we'd hit on it here, is the Colt McCoy taking over for Alex Smith. Hasn't been all that impressive for Alex Smith. Does that not give you a little bit of interest in that Dallas defense? I like to pick on quarterbacks. It's just my nature. I don't like those guys. But no, Colt McCoy comes in. Does that interest you a little more in the Dallas defense? And what about Calvin Ridley? The last big game, his first game against the Saints, that 3-touchdown game. Any chance of duplicating that, catching that lightning in a bottle again?
Starting with the defenses, I was going to mention that Dallas defense call, because specifically, of course, Chicago's defense against the Detroit offense that really hasn't looked, maybe what we expect them to be with the receiver talent emerging. Now they won't have Marvin Jones or Kerryon Johnson. Chicago defense is a great play, but they're also going to be the uber chalk play. So the Dallas defense is in a similarly good situation. They cost more, but they'll be lower owned. I love that in tournaments. And then the second question, Calvin Ridley. I like Calvin Ridley this week. If you want to go one layer deeper and try to go 2 reads deep on the tournament lineups, I would pivot from him to Mohamed Sanu. But generally speaking, I think Calvin Ridley will more often than not have a better week. But I do like the Mohamed Sanu pivot from Calvin Ridley specifically.
And just in general, who you like in this slate? Who are your primary guys?
It's going to be so hard to get off of the Saints. The offense is so good. It's at home. The Atlanta defense is trash. I believe the over-under opened up at 59, has already moved up half a point. So, all of them. Alvin Kamara, Mark Ingram might be an interesting slight pivot from Alvin Kamara, but he's going to be super high owned too. So I think one super deep way I think it's paid off once this year. Maybe this is the second time. Ben Watson at tight end. If he steals a short yardage touchdown from one of the running backs or even Michael Thomas, that'll be a nice tournament play. Unlikely to pay off, but when it does, it'll hit big.
All right, let's get into the Sunday slates, Justin. Let's start at quarterbacks. Who you got in cash games?
I think I'm looking here, and it's going to be, for me, it's going to be Andrew Luck at home. To talk about a great story this season, 29 touchdowns, only 9 picks. He's going to get you right around 23 points. We're fine with that. And his ceiling, week 4 at home against Houston, close to 40 points. I'm fine with Andrew Luck at his price point. I'm also going to go, if I'm going to pay down, gentlemen, it's going to be Andy Dalton at home against a Cleveland Browns secondary that I'm not confident at all. I think we can get 20, 25 points out of Andy Dalton. You're paying 5,300. He seems like a play that I will write up on digging in the crates. 5,300 is beautiful for me. It sucks that AJ Green is probably not going to play. We like Tyler Boyd, of course, but obviously AJ Green's like taking Julio Jones out of your offense. I think this is a bounce back week for Joe Mixon, and then conversely that it will help Andy Dalton. So Dalton, Luck for me. In tournaments I'll have, I do like Cam Newton at home. I feel like he's pretty safe. And on the other side, I'm also okay with Russell Wilson, 5,600. Kyle,
tournament plays for you at quarterback?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention Andrew Luck, looking at his touchdown totals in the past weeks, 3, 3, 3, 4, 4, 3, 4. He appears to have one of the highest floors. And then Cam Newton, I think for me, like you mentioned, the floor, great cash play. Not sure if I'll be looking to him in tournaments as much. In tournaments, I'm looking at Jameis Winston, 6,000, starting Tampa Bay quarterback. If he does not get benched, is a god every single week. And maybe even if he gets benched, he'll have a good week. But Tampa Bay is first in passing yards, 4th in touchdowns, 2nd in passing attempts. They have so many good weapons. It's hard for them not to be amazing. It's just they're both bad quarterbacks in great situations, and
Yep.
I'll buy into that in tournaments. But in cash, the risk of getting benched is actually extremely real every single week now.
Oh.
And it I think in week 4 is kind of a joke, can't play him in cash. What if he gets benched? And now that's absolutely a legitimate argument.
Right, and just a quick point on Andrew Luck, Justin, see what you think about this. Ryan Kelly out for an extended period. It sounds like the center. We've seen this before. The center kind of sometimes has a cascading effect, according to the Dallas Cowboys, when they lose one. Any concerns? I mean, the offensive line has been the strength and maybe the secret to Luck's success, other than the fact that Luck is just super crazy good. He's getting great protection. Any concerns for you?
I mean, a little bit. But, historically, we've seen Andrew Luck be on the ground. And I don't think that we're accustomed to seeing such great protection that he's had so far. It seems like there's a semblance of a running game in Marlon Mack. So, I mean, yeah, obviously this is the guy that's going to keep him clean and upright. So it's something to monitor at this point in time. But, I mean, he is on a heater for the ages. Again, Jamie Eisenberg said the other day, looked like he was on pace for 46 to 48 touchdowns for Luck. So it's something to certainly keep an eye on. And, particularly where there's a running game in place, you got this, an O-line has to get a push. And we hope, as fans of Andrew Luck and this great story that he's been, that his success continues.
Kyle, running backs that you like in either format or both?
I'll start with cash. Guys, I'm looking at David Johnson, 7,300. Still hasn't quite hit that tier 1 elite running back price yet, despite getting 25 attempts and 3 targets last week. I believe he had 9 targets, like 21 attempts the week before. Their offense is running through him again. The world is again spinning on its axis with David Johnson. And, 7,300 is a great price to pay for that volume. Another guy, volume at a discount, Leonard Fournette. Averaging 26 attempts, 3.5 receptions over the past 2 games, his first 2 games back from this injury. It looks like they are giving him the absolute lion's share of the running back touches. And I think another interesting thing I want to point out here is that he's playing about 50% of the snaps. Last week it was exactly 50, I believe. The week before, slightly over. So I really do believe that they're saying you are on the field and you're getting the ball, or you're off the field. We're not going to risk you not running or not getting receptions on any plays. If we're going to use you, you'll be on the field. And if we're not going to use you, we're not going to risk you rolling an ankle, pass blocking, or anything dumb like that. So I think they're making a concerted effort to keep him healthy while still letting their offense run through him. And that's what I like to see, because Fournette has been a guy who's burned you a few weeks if you played him and he gets injured.
I spoke to young Leonard Fournette last week, and he claims the role is locked in, and what we're seeing is what we're going to continue to get. Justin, talk about your running back choices this week.
Permitting he stays healthy, that's the magic question.
Exactly.
For Leonard Fournette. David Johnson is starting to become he has a soft spot in all of our hearts. And while I do love David Johnson, I think we all want to see him succeed. I don't know that the game script is going to line up for him. They're heavy dogs. We did see Phillip Lindsay do his thing against the Chargers, but if I'm in that area, I tend to agree with the Leonard Fournette call. Low point total. We saw Jordan Howard do his thing against the Buffalo Bills. I'm on Fournette for a couple touchdowns. I asked Bob privately the other day, is Leonard Fournette a plotter? He's not a guy that gets a ton of yards per carry. He had a big rush last year, so it kind of padded his numbers. We loved him at LSU. I think I just want to see it. I need to see more of Leonard Fournette. Nick Chubb is in a dreamy situation. I think he's a lock for 20 to 25 touches, and we love that. There's a reason why Carlos Hyde is out, and it's going to be the Nick Chubb show. So at 6,300, I'm fine with that. And gentlemen, it's going to be very, very difficult to not play Melvin Gordon at this point in time. And Melvin Gordon has been as good as any running back in the game at this point. At this point in time, and I will say that obviously Todd Gurley's doing his thing, but Gordon is right there, and I also think James Conner's in a good spot. If I'm gonna pay down in tournaments, I like me some Matt Breida. There's a high point total in that Niners-Bucs game, and when you look at it, Kyle, you mentioned Jameis Winston. I think it's a great play with Mike Evans. There's not really a run game in Tampa Bay. Where are the points going to come from the 49ers? And I think it would be Matt Breida at 5,700. So I certainly like Breida in tournaments and a little bit of Phil Lindsay, which is another great story. And one more would be Gus Edwards, who you mentioned, Bob, because I think he's in a decent spot. Maybe you're going to have to flip a coin or avoid the situation. You know what? One more play, gentlemen, would be LaShawn McCoy at home against the Jaguars. 4,200 seems absolutely crazy 27 points week 10 against the Jets. You're paying for volume here. He's LaShawn McCoy, so I'm going to need to have some exposure to him.
A few corrections. Let me add a couple points. Leonard Fournette, I think he had like the 90-yard carry against the Steelers a year ago. Does not break a lot. I think there was like two carries over 20-plus yards, big explosive plays, somewhere in that range. And also, my heart, small and cold and has no soft spots. So incorrect there. Quickly, Kyle, wide receivers you like to play?
Yeah, wide receivers I'm looking at this week. The Eagles have lost 4 of their opening day starters in the secondary. Lost 3 more on Sunday. They're just getting destroyed in the secondary. Unfortunate for them, but not for Odell Beckham. 8,800, that's a great play there in cash. And Emmanuel Sanders, 5,500. It seems so low for a guy who on DraftKings, his floor has been 9.1 points the whole year, every single game. For a receiver who's, you get 5 target games, you drop 1, 2 of them are off, and you get 20 yards. That's an average game for even good receivers. That's a very realistic game. Not for Emmanuel Sanders. There's a great floor this year. Tournament plays 4,900, Deshaun Jackson. I think I talked about this a few weeks ago with Tyreek Hill. He was in a bit of a slump, and his price came down a few $100s after a few weeks of not doing it too much. For a guy with the playmaking ability of one of these two guys, just whenever it drops after 2 weeks of bad production, that's when you go and that's when you buy. It might take a few weeks to hit, but when it does, it's money. And I love stacking him with Jameis Winston. Final guy I'll talk about, Antonio Brown, 8,700. Only 11% of his routes come from the slot. He'll avoid that Chris Harris matchup as much as possible. And I think, just by the talents, Antonio Brown, let people pay up for other guys.
That's a key right there. Avoid Harris. Justin, chime in.
Well, Keenan Allen did his thing the other day. I had no concern. This is not the Broncos team that we're accustomed to. I get the Harris logic for certain, but if Keenan Allen can do his thing, who's not the fastest guy in the world, I think AB is a lock for your cash games at 8,700. I think he'll be just fine. 20 DraftKings points. And Kyle, I tweeted something out the other day. Is Mike Evans overrated? Is he just a glorified Vincent Jackson at this point in time? He proved me wrong. 33 DraftKings points. Again, a clear rapport with Jameis Winston. This is a dreamy spot for Mike Evans at home. So I am certainly going to go there. And I'm going to go a little down. I want T.Y. Hilton when he's at home. We talk about Andrew Luck. You're going to play Luck. You're going to play T.Y. Hilton as well. You would be foolish not to. And we're a little way down. Last week, I was given some oldie but goodies, and I had Larry Fitzgerald, who had 2 touchdowns in my lineup. I'm going to go back to Fitzgerald because I think that the Cardinals are going to be down, and he will be force-fed. And I certainly like Larry Fitzgerald's price at this point in time. $5K, which is crazy. He will see Casey Hayward. I don't care about that either. I'm paying for the targets here. He'll have 10 targets, and I think it's a great spot for Emmanuel Sanders at home, 5,500. Another guy that'll have 10 targets, and I will have some Sanders and I will have some Fitzgerald so that I can pay up at running back.
Nice. Somewhere Vincent Jackson is toasting you with a ho-ho, thanking you for that shout-out. Maybe you can get Oronde Gadsden in next time. Tight ends, Justin.
Oh, wow. Seriously, though, doesn't he have this same frame? And he did play with Vincent Jackson early on. Same frame, 6'5" frame. You get the comparison. Not to say that Vincent Jackson wasn't good, but I look at the top, and the points are going to have to come from somewhere for the Philadelphia Eagles. And where I had 0 Zach Ertz last week. I will get back on Zach Ertz this week at 6,400. What's going on with Golden Tate is not the most beautiful thing to watch. I think that they've wanted to see more progress, but that takes time. So it's going to be Zach Ertz. He's the only real fixture, in my opinion, in that Eagles offense. As a team, they're struggling. I have a tough time spending 6,200 on your boy Kittle. Again, the points, George Kittle, the points are going to have to come from somewhere on that Niners team. I think it's going to be Brady. I can't rationalize 6,200 for a tight end because it is the sea of mediocrity. If I have to play one guy, and I'm not extremely confident about him, it's probably going to be Vance McDonald. Antonio Gates did his thing. He's 72 years old against the Denver Broncos last week. Give me Vance McDonald, 6 targets, 60 yards and a touchdown, I'm fine with that at 4,300. We touched on Cameron Brate. I will also have a little Cameron Brate, very, very touchdown dependent as well, but 3,600, I'm with him.
Kyle, speak your piece on the tight end position, sir.
Yeah, I wrote about this in the volume report this week, but we've seen since Jack Doyle's come back, he's the guy, again, in Indianapolis. He got the 4 tight end targets they were given between him and Ebron. Ebron getting none. I still like Ebron in the idea that I do believe he's a talented player who can score touchdowns. He's got 9 receiving touchdowns plus a rushing touchdown to boot. I think he's an interesting tournament play, but generally I'm just going to favor Jack Doyle and the volume that he gets, despite it being a low ADOT, not very exciting volume, generally not like a, I don't want to say not a talented guy, but, you know, not a talented guy, I guess. I mean, it is what it is. They're all great, but some are better than others, and he's not extremely talented. But volume is volume, and that's what we chase here, you know, on the Football Diehards podcast, and I believe he's going to continue to get it from Andrew Luck, who's balling out right now. Justin mentioned how hot he's been. He'll probably stay hot, and if he stays hot, I want his leading tight end in Jack Doyle. That
segment brought to you by the Volume Report. Read it on footballdiehards.com by Kyle Dvorchak. Go ahead, Justin.
I'm laughing over here, Kyle. I mean, just quite a bit of caffeine tonight. You just came in swinging. You sound great, kid. Is that article? Is it on Football Diehards today?
It's up right now. You'll read it all week. I've read it 4 times while we've been doing this show, and I've been enjoying it more each time.
He's wonderful. Good.
Defenses, good. Kyle, where are you at?
One defense I'm eyeing up. You talked about targeting bad quarterback play, and you know that pretty much holds true every week, especially when you consider that you know maybe the price is not congruent with that quarterback play they'll be facing. New England 3,100 facing either a McCown or Darnold-led Jets. I believe Darnold is trending upwards, but you know has had a propensity of throwing turnovers. I think he's had a lot of moments that you think he can be the future of this team, but until he shows consistency with that, give me all the turnovers, and that's something we saw from him in college too. So I like New England getting a chance to score against a turnover-prone offense in the Jets.
Justin, your defense, please.
If I had a gun to my head right now, it's not going to be – you could make an argument for the Baltimore Ravens, but statistically they've just been poor, and I don't really feel like spending – I mean, 1 point last week, 1 point week 9 against Pittsburgh, -4 against the Carolina Panthers. I'm not going there. I'm going to go with the San Diego Chargers. At home, I think that the Cardinals are going to be chasing points. I love the Chargers. In terms of some of the pieces that they have on that defense, I'm comfortable with them at home. I think that, look, I love Josh Rosen. I know our colleague John Laub was very highly regarded coming out of college. We're seeing the bumps and bruises. It's a good spot for the Chargers to attack, and they'll probably have a touchdown.
I would agree, although Josh Rosen talked this week about some lessons that he learned at UCLA, and he talked about that. He said the MFers theory. He said you see where all them MFers are, the MFer rule. If there's a lot of them MFers over there, go the other way. So yeah, he's got that going on for him. It's a brilliant tactic at the higher places of higher education. So I think we've run through everything on this Thanksgiving weekend. I hope everybody has a wonderful holiday weekend, enjoys all the football, enjoys all the points that are going to be offered up, because it already started with the Monday night game, and hope it carries over. And let's close it out, Justin.
Yeah, again, follow us on footballdiehards.com. Kyle, you know, I've been thinking about you the whole show, so I couldn't be happier that you're now writing for footballdiehards.com. Remember a few years ago, Bob said, you know, Bob brought me on, and it was a great feeling, and I couldn't be happier to have you on board now, because you're a special talent in this industry. So that's really all I wanted to say, and I hope everybody has a good Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Justin. That was very kind. And I will close out with 100% GPP Zach Zenner this week. I will probably be live tweeting every Zach Zenner carry, target, maybe every snap. Yeah, I think, yeah, probably every Zach Zenner snap. I'll be wearing my Zach Zenner.
So it's going to be an early day if he's inactive.
Don't say those things, all right, Bob? I love you, but when you say things I don't like, I don't love you. And that's, you know, we'll have to work on that part of our relationship. But that will bring us to a close. Everyone, find us on Twitter. Bob at Football Diehard, Justin Lonero at Justin Lonero, and myself at FF Kyle the Kid. Thanks for tuning in. Forever Zenner.